Today, you've got both Allie and Charlie on the live. We're doing it from Allie's profile, and then we'll share it into the group after this. But for those of you who don't know, today we're going to be talking about is adding a Ninja Gym profitable, or how profitable can it be? So we're going to cover some of the basic high level overview of what are some of the things you should think about when determining if your Ninja program can be a profitable ad. The short answer, the TLDR, too long don't read, yes, it is. It is very profitable. But we're going to get into that as we go through the conversation. But we're going to try something new today. So sorry we're a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties. But without further ado, we're going to get into the value of this talk today, which is ultimately, should you add a Ninja program to your business, or should you add, or rather start, a Ninja program from scratch? Both opportunities are great vehicles to create profitable business ventures. So we're going to talk about that today. And yeah, we'll go from there. Anything to add to that, Allie?
No, thanks for the intro. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to adding a Ninja gym or a Ninja program to your existing facility, I mean, we want to kind of look at three main things, which is like your initial like cost to get it up, right? So that's really going to be like your fixed cost, which is like your rent. You're going to have your initial startup costs for your equipment, and then your payroll. So that those are kind of the three things that you need to be thinking about when it comes to like what are the costs it actually entails to starting this program.
Cool. All right. So let's first define some terms. So when it comes to profitable programs, there are two things we want to take into consideration. Really, we're using profitability in the same sentence or in the same likeness that we would use the word successful, because we want, not only do we want the business to be profitable, but we also want the owner to have time freedom. And so time freedom is, yes, you have a profitable business, and also you have the capability to leave or take vacation or move around the business as you see fit in order to free up your time to do the things that are most important for the business. Instead of, some ownership may have a profitable business, but it's only doing so because they're fulfilling several of the central roles within the business. For example, maybe it's a one-man show. Maybe you're the coach, you're the manager, you're the owner, you're all the roles. Maybe in some situations you're the manager and the director, and you have coaches. Maybe in some situations you're partially a coach. So there's any myriad of combinations that can be put together in order to create this profitable outcome. But when we're talking about profitable programs, we want to see both it have good profit margins, which is going to be 20 to 60%. So that means 20 to 60% of your revenue at the end of the month, that's going to be profit in the bank for you. Okay. That's what we're looking for in that department. But we also want to see the owner have the freedom and the time and the ability to move to and from the business, all right, without having to be locked into any particular role in the business. Now, we understand that that's going to be where you're at in the beginning, but that doesn't, we shouldn't want to stay there. Our goal is to eventually graduate from that position and grow away from that. Okay. Allie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that kind of starts with like your first intention with starting the business. Obviously, we really like the idea of the minimum viable product, right? So we call it the MVP, which is really kind of what is the smallest amount of investment, what is the smallest amount of space that you start with to get up and get running, right? Because if you can start smaller and grow from there, you can ultimately reach your profit faster.
Yeah. And that, anything to add to the MVP component itself?
Oh, I just think that that's like when it comes to like thinking about where you need to start, right? It's like everybody thinks that they need to start with a 20,000 square foot building and they need to take out a $500,000 loan. And the reality is that you can still start an ninja program without as much of an upfront cost. And it's just going to make it easier for you to be able to get started and get profitable faster.
Yeah, and the reason MVP is such a big deal for you guys out there, and why this is relevant to profitability, is because they're directly correlated to one another. Minimum viable product ensures that the program that you're launching, or the Ninja Gym business that you're launching, has a much higher likelihood of becoming profitable sooner. Why? Because instead of putting a ton of money in the beginning as an upfront investment that you make back over time, which is typically how most businesses are going to work, You have less investment in the beginning, which means you have less of an outlook in terms of time in order to begin generating a profit, a return off of that initial investment. And the mistake we see many owners make, or many people make in general, when they start with their programs, is they start way, way, way too big. Okay. They want to come in, they want to do 5, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 square foot buildings. And think of it like this. Okay. Every every square foot that you add onto your building is going to ramp up the difficulty of running that business by a percentile. Okay. So for my example here, running 1,000 square foot Ninja Gym is 1/20th of the difficulty of running a 20,000 square foot Ninja business. And the reason being is because the larger facility is going to require more staff, more equipment, and more overhead. All right. And those are three factors that many people are not prepared to deal with. Many people are not prepared to go in and run a program effectively at 2,000 square feet, much less 20,000 square feet. So that's why we advise minimum viable product. And to be fair, guys, like Ali and I say all the time, we get asked a question, if you guys would start all over it again and do another Ninja Gym, right? How would you guys do it? We said we would do it exactly this way. We would start with a smaller minimum viable product. We'd invest just as much as we needed to get it off the ground and started so that we could run classes, start generating an income, generating revenue so that we could use the profits from that program to then reinvest into more equipment. And then eventually later on, if we felt that we were being limited by the space, we would then invest in a larger space. So a profitable Ninja program directly correlates to minimum viable product, because the smaller the program we have, the sooner we can get it to profitability and then scale it up from there. And so for many of you that may have a current program or a current business where you're teaching maybe gymnastics, cheer, martial arts, whatever, and you're thinking, man, maybe we should add Ninja, but how much space is it going to require? The answer to that question is as little as you possibly can give it for it to be successful, for it to thrive, right? Is we want to get right up to that threshold of saying, maybe around 800 to 1,000 square feet, because from there we can do a minimum investment to get just enough equipment into the business. And then from there start to grow and grow and grow. And if we have only 200 or 150 kids that we can possibly put into the program, that's fine for now. Because again, that's not where we're finishing. It's just our initial milestone that we're trying to get to. Because once we're profitable, that profitability will fuel future expansions with the business. And therefore, we don't need to be constrained by the fact that, oh my gosh, I invested 150,000 out the gate into this massive space, and I have 5,000, 7,000, 9,000 square feet. And in order for this to even pay for its own costs, I have to have 400 kids in my program. That is setting yourself up for failure. Versus when we start, we want to go minimum viable product, because our ultimate goal is to turn up the profits on the back end. Now, in regards to turning up the profits, so you guys heard me mention earlier, 20 to 60%. Your average Ninja program is doing between 25,000 and 45,000 per month. Some outliers do around 83,000 per month. Now, profit margin is going to range on that revenue. So it can range from 20 to 60%. Now, where does this come from? Initially, when you first start your program, you have all the initial costs that the program has to cover. But the great part is that there is a relationship between how large the program can get in that space, how well you can optimize that space, and your profit margin. So let's say, for example, I have 1,500 square feet. I'm running one class per hour in this 1,500 square foot space. Now, many would agree that that's not the best way to do it. Of course it isn't, but it is a smart way to start. Then from there, once we scale up from one class per hour to 2 classes per hour, our profit margin can now go from 20% to maybe 40 or 45 or even 50%, depending on how many students we can fit into those second classes. Why? Because the initial line of revenue from 1 hour of classes is helping meet all of those original costs. And now when we add our second class into that hour, that's virtually all profit. The only thing that we're having to worry about is we're probably only worrying about the amount of payroll required to produce the second class in the hour. So that's where that profitability number starts to skyrocket from 20%, 30%, 40%, so on and so forth, is because now that we're able to fit more classes into that same size of space, because now we're really efficient in the way that we use the space. Initially, you won't be efficient in the way that you use the space, and so you'll need a lot of room to mess up and fail. But if you start to grow, in your ability to efficiently use the space and run more classes in that same square footage, that's where your profit margin starts to go from 20% up, because now you're getting higher and higher yields out of that same amount of time, that same amount of equipment, and that same amount of space. So that's why you'll see some programs do 20,000, or excuse me, 20% in profit margin and 60% in profit margin. It really just comes down to how efficiently they're using the space. Now, the upside is when we talk about minimum viable product and we're referring to the size of the space, the smaller the space is, the easier it is to scale up that profitability margin. That's why it's like you would rather start with 2,000 square feet, get 2 to 3 classes in an hour in there, and now your profitability margin's up here at the 40, 50 percentile range. Versus if you have a 20,000 square foot space, it's going to take a lot more effort to get to that threshold of profitability. And mind you, a lot more work on your part, because that's a larger team to manage, that's a larger
Yeah.
space to manage. There's just a lot more variables at play with a larger space than versus a smaller space.
Well, and with the smaller space, I mean, you're going to have so many other advantages of, the rent's going to be lower. Like you said, you're going to have a smaller team to manage. It's just easier to have communication that way. But also, like, if you guys have ever been to one of those like hole in the wall restaurants that's like a very small, tiny little thing, but you go in there and it feels packed, right? There
Mm,
might only be like,
that's a great point.
maybe 10 people in there, right? But the vibe that you get when you walk in is that this place is packed, the food must be amazing, right? And so you kind of have that same effect, right, of like if you have a smaller 2,000 square foot building, if you have two classes of 8 kids running on at the same time, like that place is going to feel popping. There's going to be a lot of energy in there. Parents are going to walk in there and be like, wow, like kids must love this place, right? You're not
Mm.
going to have as much of the same effect if you had like a 20,000 square foot building, right? Which is obviously going to cost you a hell of a lot more on the rent side, as well as to be able to reach that profitability margin. So I think that there's a lot of advantages of starting smaller, as to what you had just said.
Yeah, and Ali mentions that feeling of this is a high demand product, this is a high demand service because there's all kinds of people here. That's where it's awesome to also start small, is because if I start in a city with 2,000 square feet and then I go to 4,000, then I go to 8,000 and so on and so forth, when I'm transferring to the new space, chances are I'm bringing all of those students with me. And so
Yeah.
now I get to start by opening my doors and having a full program, and I immediately get that vibe back into my large business. Versus if you start from scratch and you go right into a massive building, like Ali said, you're going to have that phenomenon instead of working for you to create urgency and scarcity of like, look at all these kids, look at all these parents, I need to sign up today or I'm not going to get the spot I want. Because that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? It's like if you add the urgency and scarcity to the pitch and you tell them like, you should sign up today because the spot you want, the time you want is going to be missing tomorrow. If your building's empty, they're not going to believe that statement. No matter how
Yeah.
good of a salesperson you are, no matter how good you pitch it, it's not going to matter. But if even if you're a terrible salesperson and you're fumbling over your words and everything, if they look behind you and they see classes full of kids, parents lining the walls, they see this building packed, when you're like, look, I don't think the class is going to be available. They're going to be like, this person's telling the truth. They're clearly frazzled because they are dealing with a lot. Versus like you may be frazzled because you're just like, oh, I suck at sales and I don't want to talk about it. But in the reality, it's like the perception they have is the business is super, super popping. And so you're just so frazzled with all the work you've got that you're trying to communicate in the little amount of time as possible. So I think,
Yeah. There's something super special of having your environment just ooze that scarcity and urgency for you,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you definitely want to build an environment, and we'll do a live, I'm sure, in the future. Ali and I will talk about how to have your environment ooze urgency and scarcity, and that could be through testimonials, it could be social proofing the walls. We tell stories about how we did that with our gyms and how that just really adds to the environment and makes signing people up that much easier. But today, we really wanted to focus on like how profitable is an energy program. Can it be profitable at all? Yes, it can. 20 to 60% of anywhere from 25,000 to 83,000 revenue per month. Some programs do more, some do less. I'm just giving you guys the general range of the field, okay? And really on average, you're going to see more around 25 to 45,000 per month for most of these programs. So they're going to get up to somewhere in the neighborhood of around 500,000 to 250,000 a year in terms of revenue. And then from there, they take around 20 to 40% of that home. Now, there are better programs who are doing it bigger and better because they have larger programs. They have a very good usage of their space. They have really good staff training programs. And so they're taking home a fatter percentage of a higher amount of revenue. But that's like everybody's playing, we'll use basketball, for example, right? Like you can play basketball at an elementary level, middle school, high school, college, pro, right? And so each person is doing the same thing. They're both playing basketball. They're all playing basketball. But the pro is doing substantially more with the basketball than the beginner is. And so it's the same thing with Ninja businesses or kids programs or businesses in general. As you grow your entrepreneurial skill set, the ability of what you're able to accomplish with your Ninja Gym is going to grow dramatically. And that's something that we help you guys with. So here's the shameless plug and transition to. All right. So if you guys are interested in having us help you launch your Ninja Gym program, okay, we have all of the pieces that you need to launch a successful Ninja program. Okay. So if that is you, what Allie's going to do is she's going to drop a link where you can go fill out our application. Because we have to ask you some questions right out the gate of like, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? If you are, we can get you in our coaching program. We can launch your Ninja Gym in the next 90 days. All right. So if that is where you're at right now, okay, I want you to comment Gym, GYM, in the comment section below. We will send you the link to go fill out for the application. If you get through the application phase, we'll jump on a call with you and go over the details on how exactly we're going to launch your Ninja program in the next 90 days and start adding $25,000 to $45,000 in monthly revenue into your business. All right. So if that is you guys, then like I said, comment Gym below. We'll see you guys in the next one next week. So we're going to always do these lives every Thursday. So we'll see you guys next week in the next one, and then we'll share this live into the group. How profitable, which is both.
So that those are kind of the three things that you need to be thinking about when it comes to like what